In a world where heroes wear uniforms and carry visible badges of honor, some of the most extraordinary acts of courage happen in complete darkness, witnessed by no one, recorded nowhere. What happens when someone saves countless lives, but never receives credit? What happens when the most elite soldiers in the world discover that their survival depended on someone they never knew existed? This is the story of Maria Santos, a woman who spent 15 years protecting America's most dangerous missions from the shadows, only to have her contributions erased from official records. It's about the moment when silence was finally broken, when truth emerged from classified files, and when the Navy SEALs themselves demanded that justice be served. Some stories are buried so deep that they seem lost forever. But sometimes, just sometimes, the truth finds a way to surface. This is one of those stories. Maria Santos adjusted her headset for the 100th time that morning, her fingers moving across the keyboard with the precision of a surgeon. The basement room at Fort Bragg hummed with the constant whir of computers and cooling fans, a sound that had become the soundtrack of her life. Above her, she knew that hundreds of soldiers were preparing for missions they might not return from. Below ground, in this windowless room that officially didn't exist, Maria was their lifeline. She had been working in military intelligence for 12 years now, ever since she graduated from MIT with degrees in computer science and linguistics. The recruiting officer had promised her challenging work that would make a difference. What he hadn't mentioned was that her most important contributions would never appear in any official record, that her name would be scrubbed from mission reports, and that she would become a ghost in the very system she helped protect. The monitor in front of her displayed a map of Afghanistan, dotted with red markers indicating known enemy positions. Each marker represented hours of intercepted communications, decoded messages, and analyzed intelligence patterns. Maria spoke 7 languages fluently and could understand fragments of a dozen more. She had spent countless nights listening to enemy chatter, piecing together attack plans, and identifying threats before they could materialize. Her supervisor, Colonel Richards, appeared at her workstation carrying a steaming cup of coffee and wearing the same tired expression he'd had for the past 6 months. The tempo of operations had increased dramatically, and their small intelligence unit was stretched beyond its limits. "We've got another priority mission coming in," he said, setting down a classified folder marked with red stripes. SEAL Team 6 is planning a high-value target extraction in the Hindu Kush Mountains. They need real-time intelligence support. Maria opened the folder and scanned the briefing documents. The target was a Taliban commander who had been orchestrating attacks on NATO supply lines. Intelligence suggested he was planning something much larger, potentially involving American civilians. The SEALs would be going in blind, relying entirely on her ability to provide eyes and ears in a region where communication was difficult and enemy activity was heavy. She looked at the mission timeline. They were launching in 18 hours. "This is a tough one," Colonel Richards continued. "The target location is in a dead zone for most of our satellites. You'll be working primarily with drone feeds and intercepted radio traffic. The SEALs will be completely dependent on your intelligence once they're on the ground." Maria nodded, already formulating her approach. She would need to analyze 3 days' worth of communications intercepts, cross-reference them with known enemy movement patterns, and create a real-time intelligence picture that could keep the SEAL team alive. She had done similar work before, but never with such limited information and such high stakes. As Colonel Richards walked away, Maria pulled up her analysis software and began the painstaking work of sifting through intelligence data. Each intercepted radio transmission had to be translated, analyzed for coded language, and cross-referenced with known enemy tactics. Every cell phone call could contain crucial information about enemy positions or planned ambushes. Hours passed in a blur of data analysis and pattern recognition. Maria's eyes burned from staring at screens, but she couldn't afford to take a break. Somewhere in the mountains of Afghanistan, 8 Navy SEALs were preparing to risk their lives based on the intelligence she provided. If she missed something, if she failed to identify a threat, good men would die. She discovered that the Taliban commander had been unusually active in his communications over the past week. Most of his calls were brief and used coded language, but Maria had spent years learning to recognize the patterns of terrorist communication. She identified references to the wedding, which she knew was code for a major attack, and the guests arriving from the north, which likely meant reinforcement for Pakistan. But it was a seemingly innocent conversation about buying sheep that caught her attention. The commander mentioned needing 12 white sheep and 6 black ones to be delivered when the moon is dark. Maria cross-referenced this with lunar calendars and realized he was talking about the new moon, which was only 4 days away. The numbers likely referred to explosives or weapons. She compiled her findings into a briefing document and sent it up the chain of command. The SEALs would know that their target was planning something big, that he had recently received reinforcements, and that they had a narrow window of opportunity to capture him before his next operation. The night of the mission, Maria was at her workstation monitoring multiple intelligence feeds simultaneously. She had 3 screens showing drone footage from different angles, one displaying intercepted communications, and another tracking the SEAL team's progress through encrypted radio transmissions. At 0200 hours, she watched through the green-tinted drone footage as 8 dark figures moved across the mountainous terrain like ghosts. They communicated through hand signals and brief radio bursts, maintaining operational security while navigating toward their target. Maria's job was to watch for any signs of enemy activity that might threaten the mission. She monitored radio frequencies used by Taliban forces, analyzed movement patterns from aerial surveillance, and tracked any changes in the electronic signature of the target area. Everything was going according to plan until she noticed something unusual in the communications intercepts. A series of brief radio transmissions had started about an hour after the SEALs began their approach. The messages were short and used a code she hadn't seen before, but the timing and frequency suggested that the enemy might be aware of the American presence. She quickly analyzed the transmission patterns and realized that Taliban forces were coordinating a response to the SEAL team's movement. Someone had spotted them, and enemy fighters were moving to surround their position. Maria's heart raced as she traced the enemy communications. At least 20 Taliban fighters were converging on the SEAL team's location from 3 different directions. The Americans were walking into a carefully planned ambush. She immediately contacted the mission controller, a gruff special operations officer named Major Davidson, who coordinated between the intelligence analysts and the teams in the field. "Sir, we have a problem," Maria said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her system. "I'm tracking enemy communications that suggest the SEAL team has been compromised. Taliban forces are moving to intercept them." Major Davidson's voice crackled through the secure communication system. "What's your confidence level on this intelligence?" "High confidence, sir. I'm tracking coordinated movement from multiple enemy groups. They're using a tactical communication pattern I've seen before in planned ambush scenarios." There was a brief pause as Major Davidson processed the information. The SEAL team was already deep into enemy territory, approaching their target location. Aborting the mission now would mean losing months of intelligence gathering and planning. But continuing forward could mean walking into a trap. "Can you determine the exact positions of the enemy forces?" Major Davidson asked. Maria's fingers flew across her keyboard as she triangulated the radio transmissions and cross-referenced them with aerial surveillance data. The Taliban fighters were good at staying hidden, but their communications gave away their general locations. "I can give you approximate positions for 3 groups," she replied. One group of about 8 fighters is positioned on the ridge overlooking the target building. Another group of 6 is moving up the valley from the south. The third group, approximately 6 fighters, is approaching from the east along what appears to be a goat trail. Major Davidson relayed this information to the SEAL team leader, Lieutenant Commander James Morrison, who had to make a split-second decision. The mission was critical, and they had trained for exactly this type of situation. But the intelligence from Maria had potentially saved their lives by revealing the ambush before they walked into it. Morrison decided to proceed with a modified approach. Instead of approaching the target building directly, the SEAL team would circle around and eliminate the ambush positions first. It was a dangerous plan that would require perfect coordination and timing. Maria watched through the drone feeds as the 8 SEALs split into 2 groups. 4 moved toward the ridge position while the other 4 approached the Southern Valley group. They would have to neutralize both threats quickly before the 3rd group could respond. She continued monitoring enemy communications, providing real-time updates on Taliban movements. The enemy fighters seemed to realize that their ambush had been compromised because their radio chatter increased dramatically. They were trying to coordinate a new response, but the SEALs were already moving. The first contact came at 0347 hours. Maria watched through the thermal imaging as muzzle flashes erupted on the ridge. The SEAL team had caught the first group of Taliban fighters by surprise, eliminating the threat in less than 2 minutes of intense combat. The Southern group heard the gunfire and began moving more aggressively toward the target area. But the 2nd SEAL team was waiting for them. The engagement was brief and decisive, with the Americans using their superior training and equipment to overwhelm the enemy fighters. The 3rd group, hearing the sounds of combat from 2 different directions, chose to retreat rather than face the obviously superior force. Maria tracked their movement as they withdrew to the east, melting back into the mountainous terrain. With the ambush forces eliminated, the SEAL team regrouped and approached the target building. The Taliban commander they were seeking had barricaded himself inside with 2 bodyguards. The Americans used breaching charges to enter the building and captured their target after a brief firefight. Maria monitored the extraction phase of the mission, watching for any signs of enemy reinforcements or pursuit. The SEALs moved quickly back toward their extraction point, carrying their prisoner and valuable intelligence materials they had recovered from the target location. As the helicopters arrived to extract the team, Maria felt a sense of satisfaction she rarely experienced. The mission had been successful, and, more importantly, all 8 SEALs were returning home safely. Her intelligence work had been crucial in identifying the ambush and allowing the team to adapt their tactics. But, as always, her contribution would remain hidden. The mission reports would mention Signal's intelligence support, but her name would not appear anywhere in the documentation. The SEALs would know that someone had provided them with life-saving intelligence, but they would never know it was Maria Santos working alone in a basement room thousands of miles away. Colonel Richards appeared at her workstation as she was completing her post-mission analysis report. "Outstanding work tonight," he said quietly. "You saved lives out there." Maria nodded, already thinking about the next mission folder that would soon appear on her desk. This was her life. Endless hours of analysis, moments of intense pressure when lives hung in the balance, and the satisfaction of knowing she was making a difference even if no one would ever know her name. She had no idea that Lieutenant Commander Morrison had made a note in his personal journal about the exceptional intelligence support they had received during the mission. She didn't know that he had begun asking questions about who was providing such detailed and accurate information. And she certainly couldn't have imagined that this mission would eventually lead to a chain of events that would change her life forever. In the world of special operations, good intelligence analysts were rare and valuable. But analysts who could consistently provide life-saving information under pressure were almost mythical. Maria Santos was becoming a legend among the SEALs, even though they didn't know her name. 3 months after the Hindu Kush mission, Maria found herself working longer hours than ever before. Her reputation within the classified intelligence community had grown, though she remained unaware of the discussions happening in secure conference rooms around the world. Requests for her specific expertise were arriving weekly, each mission more critical than the last. The morning shift change brought Staff Sergeant Rachel Chun to the adjoining workstation. Rachel was one of the few people who knew the full scope of Maria's work, having clearance for the same intelligence programs. She settled into her chair with a concerned expression that immediately caught Maria's attention. "You've been here for 14 hours straight again," Rachel said, glancing at the empty coffee cups and energy drink cans scattered around Maria's workspace. "When's the last time you went home?" Maria looked at her computer screen, where she had been analyzing satellite imagery from Yemen. The timestamp showed 0630 hours. She vaguely remembered arriving the previous afternoon for what was supposed to be a routine 8-hour shift. "There's too much happening," Maria replied, rubbing her eyes. 3 active operations in different time zones, and they're all depending on real-time intelligence. I can't just leave in the middle of tracking enemy movements. What Maria didn't know was that her dedication had not gone unnoticed by the team she supported. Lieutenant Commander Morrison had filed several requests through official channels to identify the intelligence analyst who had provided the exceptional support during his missions. Each request had been denied due to operational security requirements, but Morrison was persistent. He had begun keeping detailed notes about the quality and timeliness of intelligence support during his operations. The pattern was clear. When his team received information from a particular source, the intelligence was consistently accurate, detailed, and provided with enough advance warning to be actionable. During missions supported by other analysts, the intelligence was good, but not exceptional. Morrison wasn't the only SEAL officer taking notice. Captain Sarah Williams, who commanded multiple SEAL teams, had begun seeing reports from her unit leaders about unusually high-quality intelligence support. The reports all mentioned the same things: extremely detailed enemy position information, accurate predictions of enemy behavior, and critical threat warnings that had prevented ambushes and saved lives. Meanwhile, Maria continued her work in the anonymous basement facility. Her latest assignment involved supporting a series of coordinated raids across 3 countries, all targeting the same terrorist network. The complexity of the operation was staggering, requiring her to monitor communications in multiple languages, track personnel movements across international borders, and coordinate with intelligence agencies from allied nations. The terrorist network had been planning a series of simultaneous attacks against American diplomatic facilities. Maria had identified the plot by recognizing patterns in seemingly unrelated communications intercepts. A reference to opening new offices in one intercepted call, combined with mentions of renovation supplies in another, had led her to realize that the terrorists were planning coordinated attacks using the same methods at multiple locations. She had spent weeks mapping the network's communication patterns, identifying key players, and predicting their next moves. Her analysis had revealed that the terrorists were much further along in their planning than anyone had realized. They weren't months away from executing their attacks. They were planning to strike within days. The intelligence Maria provided led to a massive coordinated operation involving SEAL teams, CIA operatives, and local security forces across Afghanistan, Syria, and Somalia. The raids had to be executed simultaneously to prevent the terrorists from warning each other and escaping. Maria coordinated intelligence support for all 3 operations from her single workstation. She monitored communications in Pashto, Arabic, and Somali while tracking the movement of personnel and vehicles across 3 continents. For 18 hours straight, she provided real-time intelligence updates to teams operating in different time zones, maintaining perfect situational awareness despite the complexity of the operation. The results were extraordinary. All 3 raids succeeded beyond expectations, with terrorist leaders captured, attack plans disrupted, and lives saved. But what made the operation truly remarkable was that not a single American operative was injured during any of the raids. The intelligence provided by Maria had been so accurate and detailed that the teams knew exactly what to expect when they arrived at their targets. Captain Williams received the after-action reports from all 3 operations and noticed the same thing that Lieutenant Commander Morrison had observed: exceptional intelligence support that went far beyond normal standards. She decided to investigate further. Williams reached out to her contacts in the intelligence community, trying to learn more about the source of the remarkable intelligence her teams had been receiving. The responses she got were frustrating and consistent. The information was classified, the sources were compartmentalized, and she didn't have the necessary clearances to know more. But Williams was not easily discouraged. She had commanded SEAL teams for 15 years and had learned to be resourceful when official channels failed. She began talking quietly with other SEAL commanders, comparing notes about their recent operations and the intelligence support they had received. The pattern that emerged was remarkable. Over the past 2 years, there had been a significant improvement in the quality of intelligence support for high-risk operations. Mission success rates had increased, casualty rates had decreased, and teams were consistently reporting that they had received exceptionally detailed and accurate pre-mission intelligence. Williams discovered that the improvement seemed to correlate with a specific intelligence unit at Fort Bragg. Whenever operations were supported by this unit, the results were outstanding. When other intelligence sources were used, the results were merely good. She decided to visit Fort Bragg personally to learn more about this mysterious intelligence unit. Meanwhile, Maria was completely unaware of the attention her work was generating. She had just finished supporting another successful SEAL operation, this time helping to rescue American hostages being held by pirates off the coast of Somalia. Her analysis of intercepted communications had revealed the exact location where the hostages were being held and the number of guards watching them. The rescue operation had gone perfectly. The SEAL team had approached the target location with complete knowledge of the enemy's capabilities and positions. They had rescued all 4 hostages without firing a shot, using her intelligence to time their approach when most of the guards were away from their posts. Colonel Richards appeared at her workstation that morning looking more serious than usual. He was carrying a folder with the highest classification markings Maria had ever seen. "We need to talk," he said quietly. "Conference room 3. Bring your security badge." Maria followed him to the small conference room, wondering what could require such secrecy within an already highly classified facility. Colonel Richards closed the door and activated the electronic privacy systems that prevented any surveillance or recording. "You've attracted some attention," he began without preamble. "High-level attention. There are people who want to know more about you and your work." Maria felt a chill of concern. In the intelligence community, attracting attention was usually not a good thing. Analysts were supposed to remain anonymous, working behind the scenes to support operations without drawing notice to themselves. "What kind of attention?" she asked. "The kind that comes from consistently outstanding performance," Colonel Richards replied. "Your work has been directly responsible for saving numerous American lives over the past 2 years. The SEAL teams you've supported have a success rate that's statistically impossible to achieve without exceptional intelligence support." He opened the folder and showed her a series of mission reports. Each one documented successful operations where her intelligence had played a crucial role. What surprised Maria was seeing her work described in such detail. She had never realized that anyone was tracking the outcomes of her analysis so closely. "The problem," Colonel Richards continued, "is that your contributions aren't being properly documented or recognized. For operational security reasons, your name and personal details are scrubbed from all official records. But some of the officers you've supported are starting to ask questions." He explained that several SEAL commanders have been trying to identify the source of the exceptional intelligence their teams have been receiving. They wanted to commend the analyst responsible and ensure that this level of support continued to be available for future operations. "Captain Sarah Williams is scheduled to visit this facility next week," Colonel Richards said. "She's been asking very specific questions about our intelligence capabilities and the personnel involved in supporting her operations." Maria felt a mixture of pride and anxiety. She was gratified to learn that her work was having such a positive impact, but she was also concerned about the implications of being identified. Her anonymity had always been one of her greatest assets, allowing her to work without the distractions of recognition or politics. "What does this mean for my work?" she asked. "That's what we need to figure out," Colonel Richards replied. "There are discussions happening at levels far above my pay grade about how to handle this situation. Your work is too valuable to risk, but the people you support deserve to know who's keeping them alive." Over the following week, Maria continued her regular duties while wondering about the upcoming visit from Captain Williams. She had heard stories about the SEAL commander, a legendary officer who had led some of the most successful special operations missions of the past decade. The idea of meeting someone whose life she had helped protect was both exciting and intimidating. She threw herself into her work with even greater intensity, supporting a complex operation to track down a terrorist bomb maker who had been targeting American forces. Her analysis of the bomber's communication patterns and movement history had provided crucial insights that led to his capture before he could complete his next attack. The night before Captain Williams' scheduled visit, Maria stayed late to complete her analysis of a new terrorist threat that had emerged in Eastern Europe. She was deep in concentration when she heard footsteps in the corridor outside her workstation. The facility was supposed to be nearly empty at this hour, with only a skeleton crew maintaining overnight operations. She looked up to see Colonel Richards approaching with a woman in military uniform who carried herself with the unmistakable bearing of a special operations officer. Even without introduction, Maria knew she was looking at Captain Sarah Williams. Williams was smaller than Maria had expected, but her presence filled the room. She had the focused intensity of someone accustomed to making life and death decisions under pressure. Her eyes took in every detail of Maria's workstation: the multiple monitors, the stacks of classified documents, the evidence of someone who had been working far too many hours for far too long. "Maria Santos," Colonel Richards said formally. "I'd like you to meet Captain Sarah Williams." Williams stepped forward and extended her hand. When Maria shook it, she was surprised by the strength of the captain's grip and the intensity of her gaze. "Miss Santos," Williams said, "I've been very interested in meeting you." Captain Williams settled into the chair next to Maria's workstation, her eyes scanning the multiple monitors displaying real-time intelligence feeds from around the world. The basement facility suddenly felt smaller with the presence of such a high-ranking officer, and Maria found herself acutely aware of the scattered coffee cups and the fact that she hadn't changed her clothes in 2 days. "I want you to walk me through what you do," Williams said directly, without any of the small talk Maria had expected. "Show me how you supported Operation Crimson Dawn." Maria hesitated, glancing at Colonel Richards for guidance. Operation Crimson Dawn had been one of the most sensitive missions she had supported, a deep reconnaissance mission into Pakistan to gather intelligence on a terrorist training camp. The operation had required her to provide real-time intelligence for a team operating completely cut off from normal communication channels. "It's cleared," Colonel Richards confirmed. "Captain Williams has full access to the operational details." Maria pulled up the files from Operation Crimson Dawn, her fingers moving across the keyboard with practiced efficiency. The mission data appeared on her screens: satellite imagery, communications intercepts, movement analysis, and the detailed intelligence reports she had provided throughout the 18-hour operation. The SEAL team was tasked with infiltrating this compound, Maria began, pointing to a cluster of buildings visible in the satellite imagery. "Initial intelligence suggested it was a training facility, but we needed confirmation of the number of trainees, their level of training, and whether any high-value targets were present." Williams leaned forward, studying the images intently. "What was your intelligence picture before the team inserted?" Maria brought up her pre-mission analysis, a comprehensive report that had taken her 3 days to compile. She had analyzed 6 months of communications intercepts, satellite imagery from different times of day and seasons, and even commercial photographs posted on social media by people in the area. "I identified 3 potential access routes," Maria explained, highlighting the paths on the satellite image. "Based on communications patterns, I determined that the facility was most heavily guarded between sunset and sunrise, with reduced security during midday prayers. I also identified that they were training approximately 40 individuals at any given time. How did you determine the numbers? Williams asked, genuinely curious about the analytical process. Multiple indicators, Maria replied, warming to the subject despite her nervousness. Food deliveries based on intercepted conversations about supplies, laundry schedules mentioned in casual radio chatter, and even a number of vehicles I observed arriving and departing over a 2-week period. When you combine different data sources, patterns emerge. She showed Williams how she had tracked individual vehicles using satellite imagery, noting when they arrived and departed and cross-referencing this with intercepted communications. The analysis had revealed that the facility operated on a strict schedule, with new trainees arriving every few weeks and completed groups departing for assignments elsewhere. But this is what made Operation Crimson Dawn special, Maria continued, pulling up real-time intelligence logs from the mission. While the team was on the ground, I was able to provide continuous updates on enemy positions and activities. Williams studied the timeline of intelligence reports Maria had provided during the mission. Every 15 minutes for 18 hours, Maria had sent updated information about guard positions, vehicle movements, and changes in activity patterns at the target location. How are you getting this level of detail? Williams asked. I had 3 drone feeds providing different angles of the facility, Maria explained. Plus, I was monitoring all radio communications in the area. The terrorists weren't using encrypted communications for their routine activities, so I could overhear guards talking about their duties, meal schedules, even personal conversations that revealed when people were leaving their posts. She showed Williams a particularly crucial intelligence update she had provided at 0347 hours during the mission. Maria had intercepted a radio conversation indicating that a vehicle with 6 additional guards was approaching the facility. The SEAL team had been able to avoid the new arrivals and complete their mission without being detected. The team leader's report mentioned that intelligence support prevented a potential compromise, Williams said, reading from a document Maria had never seen. He credited the intelligence with mission success. Maria felt a flush of pride reading the commander's assessment of her work. She had never seen the post-mission reports that documented how her intelligence had been used and its impact on the operation's outcome. Walk me through a typical day, Williams requested. Show me what you're working on right now. Maria hesitated again, but Colonel Richards nodded encouragingly. She pulled up her current assignments, a complex array of intelligence requirements supporting operations across 4 different time zones. This morning, I'm tracking a terrorist cell in Yemen that's planning an attack on a government building, she began, displaying intercepted communications on one monitor. I've identified the cell leader and 3 other members, and I think they're planning to strike within the next 72 hours. She showed Williams the evidence, coded references to the wedding in multiple phone conversations, unusual purchases of construction materials, and surveillance photographs of the target building taken by unknown individuals. On this screen, I'm supporting a hostage rescue operation in the Philippines, Maria continued, indicating another monitor. American missionaries were kidnapped 6 days ago, and we've been tracking the kidnappers' movements through their communications. I believe they're holding the hostages in this location. She pointed to a remote area highlighted on a topographical map. Williams studied the intelligence Maria had compiled for the hostage rescue operation. The analysis included detailed information about the kidnappers' routines, the likely location of the hostages, and recommendations for the best approach routes that would minimize the risk of the captors harming their prisoners. In this, Maria said, indicating a 3rd monitor, is preparation for a raid tomorrow night in Afghanistan. SEAL Team 4 is going after a bomb maker who's been targeting coalition forces. I've been analyzing his patterns for 2 weeks to predict where he'll be tomorrow. The depth and complexity of Maria's work was staggering. She was simultaneously supporting multiple operations, each requiring different analytical approaches and expertise. The amount of information she was processing and synthesizing would typically require a team of analysts, not a single person. How long have you been doing this? Williams asked. 12 years in military intelligence, Maria replied. But the last 3 years have been the most intensive. The operational tempo has increased dramatically. Williams exchanged a glance with Colonel Richards that Maria couldn't interpret. There was something in their expressions that suggested they knew more about her situation than they were revealing. Maria, Williams said seriously, I need to tell you something that's going to come as a surprise. For the past 18 months, my teams and I have been trying to identify the analyst who's been providing exceptional intelligence support for our operations. Every SEAL commander I know has been asking the same questions. She pulled out a folder Maria hadn't noticed her carrying. I've documented 27 operations where the intelligence you provided directly contributed to mission success. In 19 of those operations, your intelligence prevented American casualties. In 6 operations, your analysis led to the capture of high-value targets that have been evading capture for months or years. Maria stared at the folder, overwhelmed by the idea that someone had been tracking her contributions so carefully. She had always focused on the immediate requirements of each mission without considering the cumulative impact of her work. But here's what's really remarkable, Williams continued. In every case, your name was scrubbed from the official records. For security reasons, the intelligence reports just say Signals Intelligence Support provided by Fort Bragg facility. No one in the SEAL community knew who was actually doing this work. Colonel Richards spoke up for the first time since the introductions. Maria, what Captain Williams is trying to tell you is that you've become something of a legend among Special Operations Forces. They call you the Guardian Angel because your intelligence has saved so many lives. Maria felt a surge of emotions she couldn't quite identify. Pride, certainly, but also a strange sense of validation. For years she had worked in complete isolation, never knowing if her efforts truly mattered or if anyone appreciated the long hours and personal sacrifices she made. There's more, Williams said. I've been in discussions with the Joint Special Operations Command about your situation. The level of intelligence support you provide is unprecedented, and, frankly, it's strategically important to our operations worldwide. She paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. The problem is that you're burning yourself out. Working 18-hour days, supporting multiple operations simultaneously, never taking leave. This pace isn't sustainable, and we can't afford to lose you. Maria realized that Williams was right. She had been so focused on the immediate demands of each mission that she hadn't considered the long-term implications of her work schedule. The constant stress and lack of sleep were beginning to affect her health and her judgment. What are you suggesting? Maria asked. Williams smiled for the first time since entering the facility. I'm suggesting that it's time for your contributions to be properly recognized and for you to receive the support you deserve. But first, we need to address some immediate concerns. She opened her folder and pulled out several documents. These are commendation requests from SEAL team leaders who have benefited from your intelligence support. Normally, these would be processed through normal channels, but your anonymity has prevented that from happening. Maria looked at the commendation requests, each one detailing specific operations where her intelligence had made the difference between mission success and failure. The language was formal and military, but the appreciation was clear and heartfelt. Lieutenant Commander Morrison has requested that you be awarded the Defense Intelligence Agency Director's Award for Exceptional Service, Williams continued. Captain Johnson wants to nominate you for the Bronze Star Medal for your work during Operation Sandstorm. And Major Peters has submitted a request for you to receive the Meritorious Service Medal for sustained exceptional performance. The awards Williams mentioned represented recognition far beyond anything Maria had ever imagined. She had always assumed that her contributions were appreciated within her immediate chain of command, but she never dreamed that the people she supported even knew she existed. But these awards can't be processed without identifying you, Williams explained. And there are people at very high levels of government who want to ensure that you receive proper recognition for your service. Colonel Richards leaned forward. Maria, Captain Williams isn't here just to thank you for your work. She's here to discuss your future and how we can better support the work you're doing. Williams nodded. I've been authorized to discuss several options with you. The first is restructuring your current position to provide you with additional support staff and resources. You shouldn't be handling this workload alone. The idea of having additional help was appealing, but Maria worried about the security implications of expanding the team. Her work required access to some of the most sensitive intelligence sources in the American government, and each additional person represented a potential security risk. The second option, Williams continued, is a promotion and transfer to a new position that would allow you to coordinate intelligence support for all special operations activities worldwide. You'd be working directly with SEAL teams, Delta Force, and other special operations units. This option excited Maria more than she wanted to admit. The opportunity to work directly with the team she supported, to understand their needs and challenges firsthand, would allow her to provide even better intelligence support. And the third option, Williams said with a slight smile, is something completely different that I think might interest you. Williams paused dramatically, studying Maria's reaction to the previous options. The basement facility seemed to hold its breath as she prepared to reveal the third possibility that would change everything Maria thought she knew about her future. The third option, Williams said slowly, involves you joining a SEAL team directly as an embedded intelligence specialist. Maria blinked in surprise, certain she had misheard. I'm sorry, what? You heard correctly, Williams replied. There's a new program being developed by the Joint Special Operations Command called Tactical Intelligence Integration. The concept is to embed highly skilled intelligence analysts directly with SEAL teams during missions. Colonel Richards shifted uncomfortably in his chair. This was clearly the first time he was hearing about this option as well. Williams continued, your work over the past 3 years has proven that real-time intelligence analysis can dramatically improve mission outcomes. But there's a lag time between when you identify threats or opportunities and when that information reaches the teams in the field. Even a few minutes can mean the difference between success and failure. Maria's mind raced as she processed this unexpected possibility. The idea of working directly with SEAL teams in the field was both thrilling and terrifying. She had spent her entire career in secure facilities, analyzing threats from thousands of miles away. The thought of being present during actual operations was almost incomprehensible. I'm not qualified for field operations, Maria said, stating what she thought was obvious. I don't have military training beyond basic intelligence school. Williams smiled. That's where the program gets interesting. Selected intelligence specialists would receive modified SEAL training. Not the full program, but enough to operate safely in combat environments. You'd learn combat medicine, weapons handling, survival skills, and tactical communication. She pulled out another document from her seemingly endless folder. The training would take 6 months. After that, you'd be assigned to rotate between different SEAL teams based on mission requirements. You'd accompany them into the field, providing real-time intelligence analysis while operations are in progress. Maria stared at the training outline Williams had provided. The program was comprehensive and intense. Physical conditioning, weapons training, tactical medicine, survival training, and specialized courses in field intelligence gathering. It was designed to transform analysts into operators while maintaining their analytical expertise. Why me? Maria asked. There must be other analysts who are better qualified for something like this. Actually, there aren't, Williams replied matter-of-factly. We've been evaluating intelligence analysts across all special operations units for the past 2 years. You're the only analyst who consistently provides intelligence that's detailed enough, accurate enough, and timely enough to be useful in dynamic combat situations. She opened her folder to another section filled with performance metrics and comparative analyses. Most analysts provide good strategic intelligence, useful for planning operations, but not specific enough for real-time tactical decisions. You provide both strategic context and tactical details that could be immediately actionable. Colonel Richards spoke up, his concern evident. Captain Williams, with all due respect, Maria's value lies in her analytical abilities, not her potential as a field operative. Taking her away from intelligence analysis to put her through combat training seems counterproductive. Williams nodded, acknowledging the concern. That's a fair point, Colonel. But consider this. Maria's intelligence is only as good as her understanding of how it's being used. Right now, she's providing intelligence to teams whose operational realities she's never experienced firsthand. She turned back to Maria. When you analyze enemy communications, you're making assumptions about how that information will be used in the field. When you identify threats, you're estimating their significance based on theoretical scenarios. But you've never been in a position where someone is shooting at you while you're trying to make sense of conflicting intelligence reports. The logic was compelling, but Maria felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of what Williams was suggesting. Her entire identity was built around being an intelligence analyst. The idea of becoming something else, something more dangerous and uncertain, was difficult to process. "I need to think about this," Maria said finally. "Of course," Williams replied. "But I should mention that there's a time factor involved. The program is scheduled to begin in 8 weeks, and there's only one position available in this first class. If you're not interested, we'll have to select someone else." She stood up, gathering her documents. "I'll be staying at Fort Bragg for 3 days. Take that time to consider your options. If you decide you're interested in the field program, I can arrange for you to meet some of the SEAL team leaders you've supported. I think hearing directly from them about the impact of your work might influence your decision." After Williams left, Maria sat in silence, staring at her computer screens without really seeing the intelligence data displayed there. Colonel Richards remained in his chair, equally quiet as they both processed what had just happened. "What do you think?" Maria asked finally. "I think," Colonel Richards said carefully, "that Captain Williams is offering you an opportunity that will never come again. The chance to take your expertise to the next level, to have an even greater impact than you're already having." He paused, then continued more seriously. "But I also think it's incredibly dangerous. Field operations with SEAL teams aren't academic exercises. People get hurt, people get killed. You'd be trading the safety and certainty of this facility for something completely unknown." Maria knew he was right about the dangers, but she also found herself drawn to the possibility of finally meeting the people she had been supporting from the shadows for so long. The opportunity to see firsthand how her intelligence was being used and to understand the real-world context of her analytical work was appealing. That night, Maria lay awake in her apartment, staring at the ceiling and replaying the conversation with Captain Williams. She thought about the commendation letters Williams had shown her, written by SEAL team leaders who credited her intelligence with saving lives and ensuring mission success. For years, she had wondered if her work truly mattered. Now she knew it did, but she also realized that there might be ways to make it matter even more. The intelligence she provided from her basement workstation was valuable, but how much more valuable could it be if she understood the operational environment where it was being used? The next morning, she arrived at work to find a message waiting for her. Captain Williams had arranged for her to have lunch with Lieutenant Commander Morrison, the SEAL team leader from the Hindu Kush mission she had supported months earlier. Morrison turned out to be younger than she had expected, probably in his early 30s, with the lean build and alert demeanor she associated with special operations personnel. They met at a small cafe on the base, away from the classified environment where they normally would have interacted. "I've been trying to meet you for almost a year," Morrison said as soon as they sat down. "Your intelligence saved my team's lives during Operation Neptune Crown." Maria remembered the mission, the one where she had identified the Taliban ambush before the SEAL team walked into it. She had watched through drone feeds as Morrison's team eliminated the threat and completed their mission successfully. "I was just doing my job," Maria replied, uncomfortable with the personal attention. "No," Morrison said firmly. "What you did was far beyond the normal job of an intelligence analyst. The level of detail you provided, the accuracy of your threat assessments, the timing of your warnings, it was extraordinary." He pulled out his phone and showed her a photograph of 8 men in military gear, taken after their successful return from the mission. "These are the members of my team. Every one of them went home to their families because of the intelligence you provided." Morrison's voice grew more serious. "I've been on special operations teams for 8 years. I've worked with dozens of intelligence analysts. Most provide general threat assessments and strategic context. You provided specific, actionable intelligence that allowed us to adapt our tactics in real time." He described the mission from his perspective, explaining how Maria's intelligence had changed their approach and saved their lives. Hearing about her work from the viewpoint of someone who had depended on it in a life-or-death situation was both humbling and enlightening. "Captain Williams told me she offered you a position with the Tactical Intelligence Integration Program," Morrison said. "I want you to know that if you take that position, every SEAL team leader in the command will consider it an honor to work with you." Maria felt a strange mix of pride and responsibility. The weight of knowing that people's lives depended on her work had always been present, but meeting Morrison made it personal and immediate. "Are you recommending that I take the position?" she asked. Morrison considered the question carefully. "I'm recommending that you understand how unique and valuable your abilities are. Most analysts provide intelligence that helps with mission planning. You provide intelligence that saves lives during mission execution. The opportunity to have you working directly with teams in the field could revolutionize how we conduct special operations." That afternoon, Williams arranged for Maria to meet with 2 more SEAL team leaders she had supported during recent operations. Each conversation was similar to the one with Morrison. Expressions of gratitude for intelligence that had made the difference between mission success and failure, descriptions of how her analysis had prevented casualties and enabled successful outcomes. By the end of the day, Maria had a much clearer understanding of the impact her work was having. But she also realized that the SEAL team she supported were operating with incomplete information because of the limitations of her current position. "The intelligence you provide is excellent," one team leader had explained, "but it's based on your analysis of our operational environment, not your direct experience of it. Sometimes the reality on the ground is different from what we can communicate through intelligence reports." This comment stuck with Maria as she considered Williams' offer. Her analytical abilities were strong, but they were limited by her lack of first-hand experience with the environments where her intelligence was being used. The Tactical Intelligence Integration Program would eliminate that limitation, allowing her to provide intelligence that was informed by direct operational experience. The second day of Williams' visit brought an unexpected development. Maria arrived at work to find Colonel Richards waiting for her with a concerned expression and another classified folder. "We have a situation," he said without preamble. "There's been a development in Yemen. The terrorist cell you've been tracking is moving faster than expected. They're planning to execute their attack tonight." Maria quickly pulled up her analysis of the Yemeni terrorist cell. Based on the communication she had been monitoring, she had estimated that they were still several days away from being ready to attack. But overnight intelligence indicated that something had changed. "What's the new information?" she asked, already beginning to analyze the updated intelligence reports. "Intercepted communications suggest they moved up their timeline," Colonel Richards explained. "Local security forces attempted to arrest one of the cell members yesterday, but he escaped. The cell leader seems to have decided to execute their attack immediately rather than risk further exposure." Maria studied the new intelligence, quickly identifying the indicators that confirmed the accelerated timeline. The terrorists were no longer talking about preparation activities. Their communications now focused on final coordination and timing. SEAL Team 7 is being tasked with a direct action mission to neutralize the cell before they can execute their attack, Colonel Richards continued. "They're inserting tonight, and they'll need real-time intelligence support throughout the operation." This was exactly the type of situation where Maria's expertise was most valuable, but it was also the type of scenario that Williams had described as being limited by remote analysis. The SEAL team would be operating in an urban environment that was constantly changing, with civilians present and multiple potential escape routes for the terrorists. Captain Williams appeared at Maria's workstation as she was beginning her analysis of the target area. "I heard about the Yemen situation," Williams said. "This is actually perfect timing for our discussion." She pulled up a chair next to Maria's workstation. "Show me how you would normally support this type of operation." Maria walked Williams through her analytical approach, studying the target area using satellite imagery, analyzing the terrorist communication patterns to predict their movements, and identifying the most likely locations for the attack and the cell members' current positions. "Your analysis is excellent," Williams observed, "but notice what you're missing. You're working with satellite imagery that's several hours old. Your communications intercepts are limited to what you can receive through electronic surveillance. And your understanding of the target area is based entirely on technical intelligence sources." Williams was right. Maria's analysis was comprehensive within the limitations of her available information, but those limitations were significant when supporting a dynamic urban operation. "Now imagine," Williams continued, "that instead of analyzing this operation from Fort Bragg, you were with the SEAL team in Yemen. You'd have access to real-time human intelligence from local sources. You'd be able to see the target area as it actually exists today, not as it appeared in yesterday's satellite images. And you'd be able to adjust your analysis based on immediate feedback from a team." The concept was appealing, but Maria still had concerns about the practical challenges. "Wouldn't my presence complicate the team's operations? They'd have to protect me while trying to complete their mission. That's why the training program is so comprehensive," Williams replied. "You wouldn't be a liability requiring protection. You'd be a force multiplier contributing to mission success. The 6 months of training would ensure that you could operate safely and effectively in a combat environment." As Maria continued her analysis of the Yemen operation, she found herself wondering how different her intelligence picture would be if she could see the target area firsthand, talk to local sources directly, and adjust her analysis based on real-time observations. The limitations of remote analysis had never been as apparent to her as they were in this moment. The Yemen operation unfolded exactly as Maria had feared it might. Despite her comprehensive analysis and real-time intelligence support, the mission encountered complications that remote intelligence couldn't have predicted. The terrorist cell had changed locations just hours before the SEAL team arrived, forcing them to conduct a hasty reconnaissance and adjust their approach while already on the ground. Maria watched through drone feeds as SEAL Team 7 searched an empty building, knowing that every minute of delay increased the risk that the terrorists would execute their attack. She frantically analyzed new communications intercepts, trying to determine where the cell had relocated, but the terrorists had switched to a different communication method that her monitoring systems couldn't track. "They've gone dark," she reported to the mission controller. "No radio communications for the past 2 hours. Last intercept suggested they were moving to a secondary location, but I don't have enough information to determine where." Major Davidson's voice crackled through the communication system. "Team 7 needs options. The target building is empty, and they're exposed in a hostile area with limited extraction opportunities." Maria stared at her screens, feeling helpless as she watched the SEAL team's situation deteriorate. Her remote intelligence systems, so effective for strategic planning, were proving inadequate for the dynamic tactical situation unfolding in real time. That's when Captain Williams' earlier words echoed in her mind. Imagine if you were with the SEAL team in Yemen. If she had been on the ground with local contacts, access to human intelligence sources, and the ability to conduct immediate reconnaissance, she might have been able to track the terrorists' new location. The operation eventually succeeded, but not without complications. The SEAL team had to rely on improvised intelligence gathering, questioning local residents, and conducting building-to-building searches until they located the terrorist cell. They neutralized the threat just 2 hours before the planned attack, but the mission took significantly longer and involved much greater risk than it should have. During the post-mission debrief, the team leader specifically mentioned the limitations of remote intelligence support. The strategic intelligence was excellent for mission planning, he reported, but Once the situation changed, we were essentially operating blind until we could develop our own intelligence picture on the ground. Captain Williams was present for the debrief, and Maria could see her taking notes throughout the team leader's comments. When the formal debrief concluded, Williams approached Maria with an expression that was both sympathetic and knowing. That's exactly the type of situation where embedded intelligence support would make the difference, Williams said quietly. If you had been with the team, you could have coordinated with local intelligence sources, conducted immediate analysis of the changed situation, and provided real-time updates based on ground truth rather than remote surveillance. Maria nodded, finally, understanding the limitations of her current position in a visceral way. The Yemen operation had been successful, but it could have been much more efficient and much safer with better tactical intelligence support. I want to accept the position, Maria said, the words surprising her as she spoke them. She hadn't consciously made the decision until that moment, but the frustration of watching a mission struggle because of intelligence limitations had crystallized her thinking. William smiled, but her expression remained serious. Are you sure? Once you begin the training program, there's no going back to your current position. The field intelligence specialist role is permanent. You'd be embedded with SEAL teams for the foreseeable future. Maria thought about her basement workstation, the endless hours of remote analysis, the isolation of never meeting the people she supported. Then she thought about the 8 SEALs who had gone home safely after the Hindu Kush mission, the hostages rescued in Somalia, the countless lives saved by intelligence she had provided from thousands of miles away. I'm sure, she said with conviction. I want to do this. Williams extended her hand. Welcome to the Tactical Intelligence Integration Program. Training begins in 6 weeks. The next month was a whirlwind of preparation. Maria had to complete extensive medical and psychological evaluations to ensure she could handle the physical and mental demands of special operations work. She underwent security interviews that were even more comprehensive than those required for her intelligence position, since she would be exposed to operational information that went beyond signals intelligence. She also had to transfer her current analytical responsibilities to other personnel, a process that proved more complicated than expected. Colonel Richards had to bring in 3 analysts to handle the workload that Maria had been managing alone. The transition revealed just how much she had been accomplishing and how unique her analytical approach had been. You've been doing the work of an entire intelligence section by yourself, Colonel Richards observed as they reviewed the transition plan. I'm not sure we realized how much we were asking of you. On her last day at Fort Bragg, Maria received an unexpected visitor. Lieutenant Commander Morrison appeared at her workstation carrying a small wrapped package and wearing dress blues rather than his usual operational gear. I wanted to present this to you before you left, he said formally. He unwrapped the package to reveal a framed photograph of SEAL Team 6 along with a citation signed by every member of the team. The citation read, "To Maria Santos, the guardian angel who kept us alive when we didn't even know we needed protecting. Your intelligence saved our lives and made our mission possible. We are honored to serve alongside you." Maria felt tears welling up in her eyes as she read the citation. For 12 years, she had worked in anonymity, never knowing if her efforts were truly appreciated or if they made a real difference. This simple recognition from the people she had protected meant more to her than any official commendation could. "There's something else," Morrison said, his formal demeanor softening. "The SEAL community has been talking about your decision to join the Tactical Intelligence Program. Word has gotten around about who you are and what you've been doing for us." He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "What I'm trying to say is that you've become something of a legend among Special Operations Forces." When people heard that the Guardian Angel was joining the Tactical Intelligence Program, the response was unanimous excitement. Every team leader wants to work with you. Maria found this revelation overwhelming. She had made her decision based on her desire to provide better intelligence support, not realizing that she already had a reputation within the SEAL community. "The training is going to be tough," Morrison continued. "Probably tougher than anything you've experienced before. But You should know that everyone in the special operations community is pulling for you to succeed. We need someone with your abilities working directly with our teams. Training began at the Naval Special Warfare Center in Coronado, California. Maria was one of 12 students in the first class of the Tactical Intelligence Integration Program, joining 11 other analysts from various intelligence agencies. The program had been designed specifically for experienced intelligence professionals who would be embedded with special operations units. The first week was devoted to physical conditioning and basic military skills. Maria quickly discovered that her sedentary lifestyle at Fort Bragg had left her woefully unprepared for the physical demands of the program. While she struggled with basic fitness requirements, her fellow students, most of whom had previous military experience, adapted more easily to the training regimen. Her drill instructor, Master Chief Petty Officer Rodriguez, was a 20-year SEAL veteran who had worked with embedded intelligence support during his operational career. He understood the unique challenges facing the program's students and was surprisingly patient with Maria's physical limitations. "You're not here to become a SEAL," he explained during a particularly difficult training evolution. "You're here to become an intelligence professional who can operate safely and effectively in a SEAL environment. The physical training is about building the endurance and confidence you'll need to function under stress, not about making you into a warrior." By the end of the first month, Maria's physical condition had improved dramatically. More importantly, she had developed confidence in her ability to handle the basic physical demands of field operations. The training had been designed to build competence rather than to weed out students, and the instructors worked with each individual to help them succeed. The second month focused on weapons training and tactical medicine. Maria learned to handle the standard weapons used by SEAL teams and received training in combat medical techniques that might be needed in the field. She discovered that she had a natural aptitude for marksmanship, consistently scoring among the highest in her class during weapons qualifications. The medical training was particularly valuable, giving her skills that would make her more useful to SEAL teams during operations. She learned to treat gunshot wounds, perform emergency medical procedures, and recognize signs of serious medical conditions that might require immediate evacuation. The third month introduced tactical communication and field intelligence gathering. This was where Maria's background gave her a significant advantage over her fellow students. While they struggled to master complex communication equipment and intelligence analysis techniques, Maria found herself helping to teach classes based on her years of experience. Her instructors quickly recognized her expertise and began using her as an assistant instructor for advanced intelligence analysis classes. This role helped her build confidence and demonstrated that her analytical skills translated well to the tactical environment. Months 4 and 5 focused on field exercises that simulated real-world special operations missions. Students were embedded with SEAL training units and participated in complex scenarios that tested their ability to provide useful intelligence support under realistic conditions. During one particularly challenging exercise, Maria's team was tasked with locating and neutralizing a simulated terrorist cell in an urban environment. While the other students focused on traditional intelligence gathering methods, Maria used her signals intelligence background to intercept and analyze electronic communications between the role players. Her analysis revealed that the terrorists were planning to relocate to a different safe house, information that allowed the SEAL trainees to intercept them during the move rather than assaulting a defended position. The exercise commander specifically commended Maria's intelligence work as being instrumental to the mission's success. By the final month of training, Maria had transformed from an isolated intelligence analyst into a confident field operative. She had maintained her analytical expertise while developing the tactical skills and physical conditioning needed to operate with SEAL teams in hostile environments. The graduation ceremony was held at the Naval Special Warfare Center with senior officers from across the special operations community in attendance. Maria's family was present, including her parents who still didn't fully understand what their daughter did for a living, but were proud of her achievement. Admiral Thompson, the commander of Naval Special Warfare, delivered the keynote address. He spoke about the evolving nature of special operations and the critical importance of intelligence in modern warfare. The graduates of this program represent the future of special operations intelligence, Admiral Thompson said. They have demonstrated that exceptional analytical capabilities, when combined with tactical training and operational experience, can dramatically improve our mission effectiveness. As Maria received her graduation certificate, Admiral Thompson paused to speak with her personally. "Ms. Santos," he said quietly, "your reputation preceded you to this program. The intelligence community speaks very highly of your work, and the SEAL community is eager to work with you directly. I expect great things from your service in this new role." After graduation, Maria was assigned to SEAL Team 3, based at Naval Amphibious Base Coronado. The team was preparing for a deployment to Syria to conduct counterterrorism operations against ISIS remnants. It would be Maria's first operational deployment as an embedded intelligence specialist. The team leader, Commander Sarah Chun, was a veteran of multiple deployments and had specifically requested Maria's assignment to her team. Chun had read the classified reports about Maria's intelligence work and understood the value that embedded intelligence support could bring to her operations. "Your job," Chun explained during Maria's first team briefing, "is not to be a SEAL. Your job is to provide us with intelligence capabilities that we've never had access to before. You'll accompany us on operations and provide real-time analysis based on what you observe and the intelligence you can gather on the ground." Maria felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness as she prepared for her first deployment. After 15 years of supporting SEAL operations from thousands of miles away, she would finally see firsthand how her intelligence was used and how she could contribute to mission success. 3 months later, Maria found herself in a forward operating base in eastern Syria, preparing to accompany SEAL Team 3 on a mission to capture a high-value ISIS leader. As she checked her equipment and reviewed the latest intelligence reports, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. The anonymous intelligence analyst who had worked in silence for so many years had been transformed into someone whose contributions were not only recognized, but actively sought after by the most elite military units in the world. The SEALs who had once known her only as an invisible provider of crucial intelligence now valued her as a trusted teammate and vital member of their operational unit. As the team prepared to board helicopters for their mission, Commander Chun approached Maria with a final briefing update. "Intel suggests the target is definitely at the location," Chun said. "But you know as well as I do that the situation could change once we're on the ground. That's why having you with us is so valuable. You can adapt the intelligence picture in real time based on what we actually encounter." Maria nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility that had always been present in her work, but was now immediate and personal. In a few hours, she would be accompanying a SEAL team in a hostile territory, using her skills to ensure their safety and mission success while sharing the same risks they faced. She thought about the citation Lieutenant Commander Morrison had given her, "The guardian angel who kept us alive when we didn't even know we needed protecting." Now, instead of protecting them from the shadows, she would be standing alongside them, finally receiving the recognition she had earned through years of silent service. The helicopter engines started up, and Maria took one last look at the intelligence briefing materials she had prepared. Soon, she would discover whether her years of remote analysis had adequately prepared her for the reality of special operations in the field. But regardless of what challenges lay ahead, she knew that she had found her place among the warriors she had spent so many years supporting from the darkness. The guardian angel was finally stepping into the light.